Jamaicans, complaining doesn't solve anything. All we're doing is playing lip service, battering up our lips.
Jam from family, the Jam from family, yeah. Jam fam, come hang with me.
Hello, Wagwan. Big up yourself, whether you're there yard or you're there abroad. Welcome back to another episode of Life with the Jam Fams. Now, on today's episode, this one is something that I really want to come on here and have a conversation about. And I'm directing this conversation specifically to Jamaicans living in Jamaica as well as Jamaicans in the diaspora. And it's an important issue for me. It's coming from personal experience and encounter with Jamaicans, and it's also coming from some of the comments that we've fielded on some of our videos. And I really want to stop to just say this right now. Jamaicans, complaining doesn't solve anything. Okay, you're not achieving anything through complaining. All we're doing is playing lip service, battering up our lips, and maybe causing some negative perception of our country and our people. It is not getting the solution that we want to get. We have spent a lot of our time complaining about the issues that arise in our country, and so far it has not gotten us to where we want to go. It hasn't gotten the solutions that we need. And if we keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, then that's just simply insanity. So I'm saying to you guys that this is the issue here. We have issues in our country that needs resolving, just like in every other country. However, the solution that we aim to achieve will not be achieved through complaining. When we want to be heard by people who are in position of authority, who can make the difference and make the change, complaining is not the way to get there. So let's just have a look at some of the experiences and some of the things that we need to take into consideration. Jamaica is a democratic society in which people have rights and responsibility, and this is extended to every citizen and every resident in the country. And with these rights and responsibilities comes the need to do things in a way that's going to actually be transformative and adding value to the country, rather than bringing shame and disgrace to the name of Jamaica and to Jamaicans, because there are many who are trying their absolute best to bring a good reputation to the country. And complaining is not going to help us to get to a good or better place. In fact, there are people who are just looking for someone who wants to complain so that they can broadcast it to help fit the stereotype that they have created and to help to say, see, that's what I told you. So we need to be mindful of the things that we're saying, because there's life and death are held in the power of our tongue. And so we can say things that brings life and add value, and we can say things that destroys and kills. So as Jamaicans, we need to rise up and keep our heads high and know that when we talk about Jamaica, we're not talking about the country in itself, because if the country was to be left vacant of people, it would thrive and flourish and have lush vegetation, beautiful crystal clear waters, lovely sandy beaches and streams and rivers, and be in its beauty, having its rich natural resources, and the animals who are living on there would thrive and flourish. And it's not just the country when we talk. We're talking about, each time we say something, whether good or bad, we're talking about the people who inhabit the nation. We're talking about the people who are in Jamaica, whether they're in positions of leadership or not. Those are the people that we're talking about. So if we say good, that's who we're talking about. If we say bad, that's who we're talking about. So our complaints need to be managed in a way that's actually going to be productive for us as a people and as a nation. Complaining without processing possible solution is an indication of weakness, victimhood, and dependency. The problems that Jamaica have aren't common just to Jamaica. It's simply that other people in other countries have managed to eradicate the ignorance of believing that complaining about their country is going to bring them any success or accomplish any positive gains. They're fully aware that it's only going to bring shame and disgrace to their people and to their nation, and so they seek for alternatives in which to tackle the ever-facing problems and the prevailing issues and concerns that they have within their nation. We need to stop and think about how we can tackle these problems. What are the possible solutions to them, and what role do we play in finding those solutions, or at least connecting people with people who can produce the solutions that we're seeking?
they say, right, the weather in the UK is not great a lot of the time. The UK has got a lot of problems. The economy is not doing too well at the minute, and a lot of other things that we could talk about, but I'm not going to go on a negative rant about the UK.
Some Jamaicans still have the colonized or the colonial mindset of thinking that someone, somewhere, is going to solve the problems. Well, newsflash, Jamaica is an independent country with its own democratic governance. So therefore, their problems are going to need to be solved by them. There are no kings that are going to be sending back stipend that they've garnered from unpaid wages to come back and pump into the country for the benefit of its development. So we've got to figure out what strategies we're going to put in place to solve our problems. That requires taking on the privilege of being great citizens and shedding the servitude mindset. Marcus Garvey and Bob Marley have been long calling Jamaicans to emancipate themselves from mental slavery and to recognize that none but ourselves are going to free our minds. And so it begins with us taking the initiative to see where we can improve and how we can get it done. So we need to think, what are other countries plagued with that Jamaicans are also experiencing? Or what are we as Jamaicans plagued with that other countries have also experienced? And then stop to think about, well, how did they create improvement for themselves? And also look at what abilities, talents and gifts that are within us here that we're not nurturing and growing, and then see how those can contribute to building our country and causing our country to rise. Because people all across the globe, regardless of the negativity that sometimes are spun in the media or from our own country about us, people across the globe are still admiring Jamaica and desiring a piece of it. So there has to be a lot of good about Jamaica, and Jamaicans have made impact in countries and industries, and they are continuing to do so. So we know that we are little, but with Talawa. So we can decide within our own minds that we're going to address these problems, and we're going to work collaboratively to do so. But we first have to decide that we can do it, and then start to put measures in place to actually get it done. As people holding hands together, as citizens, taking accountability collectively to work to achieve the transformation in Jamaica that we are desiring. Because whatever change we want to see, we've got to be that change. And in being that change, we can impact the sphere in which we are. We can influence the environment in which we are. Because where we're planted, we can blossom and we can thrive. The biggest points of complaints are crime, government, infrastructure, immigrants coming to Jamaica, and the resulting effect of these on cost of living. Here are some comparative realities elsewhere in developed countries. These are well-established countries and having what is considered as thriving economy, good governance, and state-of-the-art infrastructure. Here are some footage of their realities. We've heard a lot said about Jamaica's crime rate, and of course we would all want the Jamaican crime rate to be reduced. Otherwise, we wouldn't actually be Jamaicans. However, we're also very conscious that it is no way as high as people try to portray.
Break-ins in your neighborhood over the past year, you're not alone. Statistics Canada says these, and in fact all crimes, are up across the country. Stats Can says the incidence and severity of police-reported crime rose by 4% in 2022. It's the second straight year that's happened. The theft of motor vehicles is reportedly a big reason why. The data shows auto theft is up by 24% from the year before. It comes amid concerns criminals are using sophisticated technology to steal vehicles and sell them or their parts outside the country. The report says robberies, break-and-enters, minor thefts, and shoplifting are also on the rise. The number of hate crimes reported to police went up by 7%. That follows a whopping 72% increase during the height of the pandemic. Also of note, the murder rate. It is up for a fourth straight year by 10%, with police reporting 874 homicides across Canada in 2022, and rates of homicide are higher among Indigenous and racialized people. The new data comes out a day after the Prime Minister named a new Justice Minister, shuffling out David Lametti and bringing in Toronto MP Arif Virani. Today, Justin Trudeau was asked about rising rates of crime and what his government is doing about it.
We've been working with provinces across the country on bail reform. We've been working on strengthening the ways of supporting Canadians, because it is not right that in far too many of our cities we're seeing an uptick in violent crime. And there's all sorts of different factors that go into that.
One of the other things that people complain a lot about is the government. And of course, Jamaica is not a communist or dictatorship or socialist regime. Jamaica is a democratic society with a democratic governance system that was inherited from Britain in a pretty similar way like the US and Canada have. And of course, there could be more done to ensure that the government system is less centralized and less politicized. There could also be more done to ensure more transparency and accountability in the governance system. However, the same things referred to as corruption when addressing the Jamaican government are also referred to as lobbying when we're talking about Britain, US and Canadian government system. So the terminology right there makes a lot of difference in the minds of people who are hearing it. However, the reality is what happens in the background is pretty much one and the same.
Shipping containers. It's very, very hot in summertime. It's unbelievable. I have leaks, I have cockroaches infestation, I have mold, germ. It's just somewhere it's so scary that you can't even leave your broom outside because someone is going to take it. Your bath mat, everything you leave outside, your kids' scooter, bike is being stolen. It's a nightmare.
Instead of more social housing, house building is set to collapse. Instead of banning no-fault evictions, thousands of families are at risk of homelessness. When's he going to get a grip and focus on the country?
When there was an opportunity in this House, Mr. Speaker, in this House, to back our plans to reform defective EU laws, to unlock 100,000 new homes, Mr. Speaker, what did he do? What did he do? He went in front of the cameras and said one thing and came in here and blocked it. Typical shameless opportunism.
The next point of complaint is infrastructure. Now, so much is being done with improving the infrastructure. However, at the point when Jamaica became independent, so much of Jamaica's wealth was withdrawn from the country and taken by the British, and Jamaica was left to build from scratch. And of course, as such, some things that suffer included the maintenance of the infrastructure that was already in place. And we are very conscious that when infrastructure isn't maintained and it starts to deteriorate, then what will need to happen is it results in the need for a total overhaul and replacement, which is a lot more costly and as such will be at a slower pace. And so that's one of the things that Jamaicans are having to fight back now to try and see if we can put in infrastructure in place because of the years of not being able to find enough money in our financial stores in order to maintain those whilst having to do all the other things as Jamaica was having to rebuild when it lost all of its wealth when we became an independent state.
There are a lot of people in the United States right now who think the country is falling apart, and at least in one respect they're correct. Our roads and bridges are crumbling, our airports are out of date, and the vast majority of our seaports are in danger of becoming obsolete, all the result of decades of neglect. None of this is really in dispute. Business leaders, labor unions, governors, mayors, congressmen, and presidents have complained about a lack of funding for years. But aside from a one-time cash infusion from the stimulus program, nothing much has changed. There's still no consensus on how to solve the problem or where to get the massive amounts of money needed to fix it. Just another example of political paralysis in Washington. Tens of millions of Americans cross over bridges every day without giving it much thought, unless they hit a pothole. But the infrastructure problem goes much deeper than pavement. It goes to crumbling concrete and corroded steel, and the fact that nearly 70,000 bridges in America, 1 out of every 9, is now considered to be structurally deficient.
Our infrastructure is on life support right now. That's what we're on.
The other point of complaint is that people who are coming into the country are coming in to take over.
Population almost 350,000 at the last census. But with net migration passing 600,000, it gives you a sense of just how many people came to the country last year, towards double a reasonably sized British city. International students account for more than 200,000 of those arrivals. This group have come from all over the world, from Singapore to India and Morocco to study at the University of Warwick.
If we're to believe this guy, they are. But what do people here think? Do you think that immigrants are stealing American jobs?
Yes.
No, I don't. No, I think we need the immigrants. We need their help here.
So how do you know an undocumented immigrant's not going to steal your job? Maybe steal your bike, steal your honey?
Not worried about it.
I guess they can't agree.
And on the other side that people complain about is the fact that their arrival is causing things to be more expensive in Jamaica. Cost of living and things are becoming more expensive across the globe.
Things.
poutine, saying the word a, general politeness, pronouncing the word boot, totally normally. But more recently, some less endearing things have been added to that list: debt and unaffordable housing. You see, in places like Vancouver, British Columbia, it's not uncommon to see homes like this 3-bedroom 1949 bungalow going for $5.5 million. Albeit that's in Canadian. It's only 4.1 million in American dollars. But as property prices have risen in the country, incomes have not kept pace, leading Canadian households to become some of the most indebted in the world, as homebuyers have made up the difference between their incomes and house prices using debt. Now, interest rates are on the rise, home prices are down 12% from their peak, and people are starting to wonder if Canada's housing market is in a soon-to-pop bubble.
There is also the case of supply and demand. If things are in demand more than there is supply, then the price of things are going to become more expensive. And so that's something that we probably need to consider. Add to that, Jamaica imports a lot of its resources. And with importation comes the added cost of importation tax and logistics to move things from point A to point B. And so that too is going to add to the cost of things in Jamaica. Now, what will actually make a difference? How do we really solve the problems at hand? One of the things that's going to make significant difference when we do all of those things is building our economy. When we're building out our economy, we will have less need for loans from other countries. We will have less need for other countries to need to fund our infrastructure. When we build our economy, we will have less need for foreign entities to need to see business opportunities in Jamaica and to come and invest in there, because Jamaicans are already occupying those spaces because we build out our economy. And building out our economy is the responsibility of every single Jamaican, because every Jamaican needs to be thinking, how do I add to the Jamaica that I want to see for myself and for the future? What can I do to make Jamaica a better place for me and for the people around me? And if we're all thinking that way, then a lot of the things that we're complaining about now, that is the Jamaican experience for some people, will slowly be eradicated, and we can all have a better Jamaican experience and tell a better Jamaican story.
How was that?
Thank you for spending this time with us today, and bye for now. See you in the next one.